let's talk about you. You, when you're in those stress ball moments that happen at work, when you're a little bit amped up over your usual and you're distracted by the head racing of the challenges that are going on with the day, the situations like when you had your whole afternoon planned out, you have one more meeting and then the rest of the day for deep work on this important project you've been wanting to spend time on, and then boom, just before you go into that meeting, you get a message about a critical issue. It's urgent. You're needed for the solution. You know you have to scrap what's going on the rest of the day. I'm talking about those moments when you attend that next meeting, but you're totally distracted. Your head is racing with the solutions, both because you're annoyed that you didn't get to work on the thing that you were going to work on, and because you're jumping ahead to the solutions of the next meeting. Those are the everyday headspaces that hijack us and take us away from the creative breakthroughs, from being present, from being at our very best contribution in that meeting. And so as an antidote to that, there are a couple of things you can do. Take these 2 steps. One is to name that state that you're in, and then the second is to do something specifically to interrupt the pattern. So name it and then pattern interrupt. Okay, so in the name it, I'm talking about things like, what does it actually look like on you? What do you physically look like? What do you sound like? How do you change when you're in that amped up, stressed state? For me, when I name it, I call it focus face, because physically I go from a typically open and lighthearted and hopefully fun-loving kind of person, and then all of a sudden, when my head is just focused, and I probably walked down the hall with a really intense-looking face because I don't know until people snap me out of it and say, "Are you okay?" Because they notice something is so different in the way that I physically look. So I know that I have this focus face and that it's difficult for me to even realize I'm in that state. I've heard of all sorts of facial expressions and physical movements. In one of my sessions, a woman said, "I don't have one of those kind of physical showings of what is going on." And her teammate laughed out loud and said, "You have this eyebrow thing that you do." And so you might have a fidget, you might have a facial expression, you might walk differently down the hallway. We also hear things like, I had a VP once who left her purse out. So when she would get in these states that distracted her and kept her in a bad headspace, she would leave her purse out on her desk, cash open for everyone to see. And you're talking about an open workspace where hundreds of people that she doesn't know are walking by a day. Not really a good idea to leave that kind of cash lying around. But she didn't even realize she was doing it until we asked her about it. So that's number 1. Think about you. What are those tells that you are in that headspace that isn't productive for you? That headspace that keeps you from being at your best, that keeps you from your creative breakthroughs. Name it. And if you don't know it, ask some of your teammates, because they probably know some details about you, some nuances that you may not even realize about yourself. And then in step 2, where you do the pattern interrupt, this is where you do often mental or physical exercises that take a minute or less to give you a reset so that you can get into a good, productive headspace. If you're watching this video on the front end of a training, we'll actually go through a heavy handful, close to a dozen of these type of pattern interrupt exercises that you can try on for yourself and see which ones give you the right headspace so you can get back into your creative thinking mode. You can get back into being fully present and fully contributing to the meeting or to the project that you're trying to contribute to. So next action from here is for you to go off and do that name it phase. Be watching for what that is about you when you're distracted, when your stress is amped up. What is the tell? What is that thing that you could notice or other people around you already do notice so that you can give it a name, and then we'll make a decision later. You can decide what are you going to do to interrupt that pattern so that you can flip it around and be at your very best.